There's one resistance that no one wants to join, and that's the type of resistance that rears its ugly head when you really need to get some work done. We've all felt it, and it doesn't feel nice. I feel resistance often, and I've stumbled many times and given into it with a lack of discipline. So let's have a look at resistance and discipline and how it's talked about in this book right here. Some of you may be wondering what resistance is, so I think that's a good place to start. Resistance is a term I first came across when I read the book The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, and he never gives a specific definition as to what resistance is, just a whole long list of metaphors. I would describe resistance as the feeling you get when you know you need to be doing a piece of work. You know you need to be doing it, and doing so will make you feel good. Heck, it's even something that you love and something you enjoy doing, but for some ungodly reason you just cannot bring yourself to sit down and do it. And that's when procrastination and temptation sneak in. I get that feeling way more often than I'd like. That's the times when you say to yourself, just for tonight, and then you end up sitting down and playing video games instead. Now, don't get me wrong, I think video games are extremely important, and I made a video about why I think that, which I will put up here. But there's a time and a place for them, and that's not when you're supposed to be doing your important work. I make this sound devastating, and that's because it is. We're all capable of creating some amazing work if we don't give in to resistance. But it's okay, because battling resistance is extremely possible, and I had to do it before writing this script. One of the biggest lessons I learned from this book is that you're not going to produce your best work every single time. It's impossible. We aren't machines, although I do sometimes wish I was, so then I could crank out as many video scripts as possible. But then, obviously, if that was the case, I wouldn't be making this video, because resistance wouldn't be a thing. Anyway, Pressfield writes, "How many pages have I produced? I don't care. Are they any good? I don't even think about it. All that matters is I've put in my time and hit it with all I've got. All that counts is that for this day, for this session, I have overcome resistance." I love this mindset. It's like he's having a celebration for sitting down and doing his work, but also understanding that it's just a tiny step in a more significant journey. The important part is acknowledging that more significant journey as well. Those steps need to keep being taken, and you need to show up day in and day out and produce something, whether it's good or bad, because even when you produce something bad, it's giving you an experience to make better the good work that you do produce. A bad day in a year could be your best day now, so keep plodding on and making those tiny improvements. Humans are creatures of habit, and giving into resistance every time it pops up becomes a habit. It makes us weaker every time we do, which is why you need to put in place techniques and systems to help you overcome this. I will be making a video on the different techniques and systems I use, so if that is something that you're interested in, then please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you don't miss out on that. I used to be very hard on myself if I didn't do all the things that I'd scheduled in my calendar, and I still can be sometimes. It depends how many times I've given in to resistance that week, but since reading The War of Art, I've much better learned to deal with those feelings. I still get them, and I think I always will, but not allowing those times of disappointment to block me from creating is what's really important, and even sometimes using those feelings to push me forward. What finally convinced me to go ahead was simply that I was so unhappy not going ahead. I was developing symptoms. As soon as I sat down and began, I was okay. This quote resonates with me because the feeling of disappointment I feel towards myself if I don't sit down and do some work is horrible. It's one of the most devastating feelings I've ever experienced. Work, like writing the scripts for these YouTube videos, is something that's so important to me and something that I know I need to sit down and do, but for some reason sometimes I just don't. Though knowing I'll experience those feelings if I don't sit down and do it is sometimes a huge driving force for making me sit down and do it. Interestingly, as suggested in the quote, once you sit down and start doing something, you just end up getting into it anyway. It's so strange. You feel that resistance pushing against you so hard, but if you're strong enough to just wade through it and get started, then you end up just getting on a roll, and sometimes you don't even want to stop. The feeling I get after writing a script is amazing, and that's the feeling that I need to remember before I sit down to start writing the script. Honestly, once a script is finished, I'm elated, and it makes my entire day, potentially the next day too, and hell, who wouldn't want to be happier like that? There may be a level of perfectionism at play here. Don't get me wrong, I don't think a single one of my videos are perfect. Far from it, but I really want to be writing something good, so maybe I'll just wait until I'm in the mood to do it. Or that could just be making excuses for myself to try and protect my ego. And that's what Pressfield touches on here. Rationalization is resistance's right-hand man. Its job is to keep us from feeling the shame we would feel if we truly face what cowards we are for not doing our work. We don't want to hurt ourselves, and that's what we do when we give in to resistance and fail to work on the things that we love. It's mental pain. The human mind and body then starts to do what it does best and tries to protect itself. And that's when excuses start being made. I've made excuses so many times. During March, some of you may have noticed that my uploads kind of just stopped for a bit. And that's because I kept making excuses saying that I couldn't get around to doing it because I had a stag weekend in Munich, which is an absolutely beautiful city, by the way, and I've now started to learn German, so maybe I'll make a video about that in the future. But anyway, a week after the stag, it was my son's 3rd birthday, and then a week after that, it was my friend's wedding itself. Now, I started saying that I didn't have time to get around to it, but the stag weekend, yeah, you could work with that because it was a whole weekend affair, but the wedding and my son's birthday, they were just single days. I could have been putting the work in, but I went up against resistance and I lost. I read The War of Art a few months ago now, but some of the lessons in there have really helped me be more disciplined when it comes to writing these videos. The biggest lesson I took away from this book was simply understanding what resistance is and being able to recognize the symptoms of it when it shows up. Merely knowing about it empowers me to fight against it, and I've achieved so much more since learning about what resistance is. It's certainly a book for creative minds to delve into. And since reading it, I make time to write almost every single day. I hadn't written anything good. It might be years before I would, if I ever did at all. That didn't matter. What counted was that I had, after years of running from it, actually sat down and done my work. This is a bonus quote for you, and I love it. It highlights the importance of sitting down and doing your work, even if you don't feel like you're producing your best. It's impossible to always produce your best. It's also a good reminder to stop putting things off and just get on with what needs doing. And that's what I've done, because I've now stopped putting off trying to learn web development. I talk more about that and where you can learn yourself in the last video I made, which you can watch right here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you over there. Bye-bye.